The cave is dark except for the fire. You're not thinking about anything complicated. Food, cold, whether the sounds outside the rock wall are getting closer. Then someone throws a bundle of dry plants onto the flame. The smoke changes. It smells different, sharper, sweeter, something. You breathe it in without deciding to. Your chest fills, and for the first time today, maybe the first time this week, the noise in your head gets quieter. You don't have a word for what just happened. You don't need one. You just want it again.
Here's what most people assume. Smoking started when Europeans started growing tobacco, or when someone in the 20th century rolled it into a paper tube and sold it at a shop counter. That's wrong by about 50,000 years. The real story starts much earlier. In a cave in Iraq, at a burial site called Shanidar, archaeologists found something that changed what we thought we knew about Neanderthals. It was 1960. Ralph Selecki was excavating the site when his team uncovered the remains of a Neanderthal body, around 60,000 years old, and buried deliberately in a position that looked intentional, surrounded by what appeared to be flower pollen and burned plant material. One of those plants was ephedra. Ephedra isn't something you burn by accident. It's a stimulant used for thousands of years across Central Asia as medicine. The fact that it appeared in a deliberate burial around a Neanderthal 60,000 years ago means someone knew what it did. They weren't just burning wood, they knew that plant specifically, by name probably, in whatever sound they used for names. That's the moment the question opens up. Not when did humans start smoking, but how long have humans understood what certain smoke does to the human body? And the answer is longer than we're comfortable with. Let's stay in that cave for a moment. Your fire isn't just warmth, it's the center of your entire social world. Your group eats around it, sleeps near it, tells stories beside it. For most of human prehistory, the fire circle was the only meeting room, the only hospital, the only church, the only therapy session. And smoke was always part of that. But here's the thing almost nobody asks. What were they burning? Not everything burns the same. Some wood produces thin white smoke that stings your eyes. Some plants produce something thicker, heavier, that sits in the air and changes the mood of the room in a way that's hard to explain, but impossible to miss. Ancient humans noticed this. They noticed it the way they noticed everything, because noticing things was survival. Fast forward to 2019. A research team published findings from the Zhejiang Cemetery in western China, dating back 2,500 years. They found ancient braziers, small stone vessels designed specifically for burning things. Inside the residue, they found chemical traces of cannabis with a higher psychoactive content than wild varieties. This wasn't accidental. Someone cultivated a specific plant, dried it, and burned it in a specific stone vessel at a burial ritual. The people who did this understood what they were producing. They were doing it on purpose. The same period, the Greek historian Herodotus sat somewhere around 440 BC and wrote, with what you can tell is genuine confusion, about the Scythians, a nomadic people from the steppes who would, after a funeral, set up small tents, heat stones in a fire, and throw hemp seeds on them, then climb inside the tent and breathe. He wrote that they howled with pleasure. He found it strange. He wrote it down anyway, which is the only reason we know. Now, jump to the Americas. When European explorers arrived, they found tobacco use so embedded in native cultures across North and South America that it was inseparable from ceremony, medicine, diplomacy, and prayer. Pipes turned up in burial sites across the Mississippi region, dating back 3,500 years. Nicotine residue confirmed the obvious. These weren't decorative objects. People had been loading those pipes, lighting them, and inhaling for millennia before any European ever touched them. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia had been smoking native plants called patchouli for so long that their trade routes for it were established long before Europeans arrived and decided to document things. So the picture that emerges, if you look at the actual evidence rather than the tobacco company timeline, is this. Across 6 continents, in cultures that had no contact with each other, human beings independently discovered that burning certain plants and breathing the smoke did something useful. That's not a coincidence. That's an instinct. Here's what's strange about this. Every culture that developed deliberate smoke inhalation did it for the same small set of reasons: ritual, medicine, social bonding, contact with something beyond the ordinary. None of them developed it the way we have it now. Is interesting. What happened between the fire circle and the parking lot? To understand it, you need to know what smoke actually does to a brain that's been managing constant threat since the Pleistocene. Nicotine hits dopamine pathways within seconds. It briefly suppresses the amygdala, the part of the brain that's permanently scanning for danger. The same system we talked about that never got the all-clear signal after the predators left. For a few minutes, the alarm quiets. For a social animal that spent most of its existence in tight-knit groups where constant vigilance was the price of survival, that kind of relief was worth something real. And in the ancient context, it wasn't just chemical, it was social. You didn't smoke alone. You sat with your group around a fire in a ritual that everyone understood. The smoke was the punctuation mark. It said, this moment is different from the others. Pay attention. We are doing something together. Anthropologist Johannes Wilbert spent years studying tobacco shamanism among the Warao people of the Orinoco Delta. He found that tobacco wasn't recreational. It was diagnostic. The shaman used it to enter a state where he could assess illness, speak to the dead, and navigate decisions the tribe couldn't make with ordinary thinking. The smoke wasn't a habit, it was a tool. What happened to that framing over the centuries is a story about what happens when you strip a ritual of its context and sell the chemistry alone.
Here is the part that nobody in the conversation about smoking ever says. The craving is real because it's ancient, not because tobacco companies engineered it from nothing. They found an existing human pull towards smoke, towards fire, towards altered states that briefly quiet the noise of constant alertness, and they packaged it in paper and sold it back to us at a profit. The thing you feel when you reach for a cigarette, or watch a candle, or sit near a bonfire and feel your shoulders drop, that's not a weakness. That's 50,000 years of wiring responding to something it recognizes. Your prehistoric ancestor would have recognized the impulse immediately. They just wouldn't have understood why you were doing it alone, on a cold pavement, without a fire circle, without a ritual, without anyone around who meant something to you. That part would have made no sense to them at all.
The oldest pipe ever found in North America is 3,500 years old. The person who made it, who chose the stone, who carved it into that shape, is completely unknown. But the object survived. Archaeologists know it was used. The nicotine residue confirmed it. Someone held it, breathed through it, probably sat near a fire when they did. You will never know their name. You will never know what they were thinking. But you know what they were reaching for, because some part of you has been reaching for the same thing without knowing why. Not a product, not a habit, something older. The need to slow down, to breathe something in, to feel for a few seconds like the noise outside your head is slightly less loud than it was a minute ago. Humans built that need into themselves long before anyone decided to charge for it.
If that changed how you see something you thought you understood, there's another story waiting. The habits you can't explain usually have the oldest explanations. History isn't behind us. It's still burning in most of us, quietly like a fire we forgot we lit.